Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome, everyone, Inside the Huddle.
It's good to see you guys.
Fearless leader, Steve.
Yeah, fearless leader. You two were at Atlanta, or were in Atlanta, I should say. Excuse my English. Candis was saying she had a great time. Sean, was that your first retreat?
That was my first retreat.
And what was your
good one? I'll tell you this. I don't know if it's been released yet, but anyone who hasn't seen Robert's opening remarks, that is an absolute must as soon as possible. Yeah. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. Candis, do you think anybody in there didn't tear up?
No, and I thought I knew his story pretty well, but yeah, he's just such a force of nature.
He really is.
Yeah.
And the people who keep putting doubt out, which there's one brokerage that seems to be the originator of a lot of the the stories, I'll call them, about. You listen to that man speak about what actually happened, how all in he is right now. You don't have any doubt where this company's going at all. Walked out there thinking I need to buy more stock, actually, is how I walked out.
That, and I also think you meet the people, the other agents, the managers, with the staff, and there's no doubt that you're amongst your tribe.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
well, speaking of tribes, go ahead, Sean. You were going to say?
Well, I was going to ask. I didn't make it to the second day or third day of the keynote. Her name isn't coming to mind right now.
Mel Robbins.
Yes. Did you go to that?
I did, and that's actually Coldwell Banker had her years ago, and I had her at a couple of Buffini things I've seen her, but she's like Randall Park. She gets better looking and more energetic and more fun every day. So it was great. She was fabulous.
I definitely want to catch her. I had a meeting, but yeah. I heard she was really good.
Really good. Really good.
Well, for those of you on the call this morning who don't know our special guest or have yet to meet her, which I find hard to believe, but if it's true, you're looking at the first Compass agent to take a chance on, the first person in San Diego to take a chance on Compass as our founding agent, the number one agent. So when you look at the roster at the top of the list from day one, you'd find this person. And she is a dear friend and someone who I treasure as a friend, but just as importantly as a colleague. And so I want to introduce you all to Candis Kolb. What I've asked Candis to, and I'm going to give her the floor here in just a second, but what I wanted Candis to discuss with us today or share some insight with is the following. Most of you know I've been doing this a long time by the show of gray hair and lack of it. And in all of those years, I can honestly say that there's less than a handful, and I mean this, less than a handful of agents that if someone came to me and said, if you were going to try to really build up your network in such a way that you can develop repeat referral business, like really make that the core value, a cornerstone of your business, the first person I think of is Candis, along with probably three others.
Thank you.
And so Candis is somebody that role models every day what it means to put people first. Ironically, just so you know, and I don't think this was, Sean, I know this wasn't scripted, but I get a call from Colleen. I'm in the Cardiff office. Hey, you got a note here. I'm waiting for you. So do you want me to open it up, or do you want me to going to be in the office? I said, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll pick it up. And I walk into the office, and here's this card from Candis saying kind things about me. And it was just so funny because it just speaks to the person and what it means to build and forge relationships and show people and demonstrate that you value them and that you care about them. And so what I've asked Candis to do today is to speak to you about the methods that she implements that help her stay in contact, some of the strategies behind what she's trying to achieve in fostering and maintaining those relationships. But I think more importantly, why she does it, because to do what she does at the highest level, it's just who you are. And I think what she does can be adapted. Like we can all learn from it. So Candis, sorry for the long-winded introduction, But that's, I just wanted you to take the floor now and share some of those thoughts and maybe make an opening remark here about, who you are and your story real quickly, where you came from before you got into real estate, and what's put you on this path to relationship building.
Well, thanks. That's, yeah. So my story, I started in real estate. It was a second or third career for me. And I didn't start in real estate till both our sons had graduated from high school and gone off. And I found myself working in a small business with my husband, which we are great at being married, but we don't work well together. We don't wallpaper well together. I don't know what made me think we could run a business together, but it got to the point where one of us had to either go get a real job that paid money and wasn't just an expense. And it also probably kept me out of jail from killing him, because it was rough. So I was 50 when I got my real estate license. And the first, when I was waiting for my license to come, I walked into an open house where somebody was it was a guy sitting there, it was kind of quiet, and he was writing a note. So I'm like, what do you do? We got talking, and he told me about Buffini and the Buffini and Company way of having a referral-based business, and not a huge business, just a small business. And I'd already decided my tagline in this business, because I also, previously had been in pharmaceutical sales. I'd actually, been a teacher. I'd been whatever, just a lot of different things in my career. But I knew my tagline was going to be, it's all about relationships, because it is. And I hear it. And then once you decide that's your tagline, you hear it everywhere. But that was going to be my deal. So I signed up with Buffini. The first day I got my license, I started coaching with Buffini. And I think coaching is so important. I've been blessed to have two great coaches. I've had Buffini and I've had Steve Salinas. And the two of them are both as authentic as you can get. Steve happens to be an extreme wordsmith. If I don't know how to say something, I call Steve. How would you put this? But I have those two chirping in my ear all the time. And what I realized right away is there's a bunch of ways to do this business. And relationship based is not for everybody. I have a sister that's got her own brokerage for many more years than I've been in the business. She's all about discounting and volume. Fabulous. Works for her. I have a son-in-law who's in the business. He's in a market where they buy a lot of Zillow leads, street. He's in New York City. I did insist that he join Compass, which he did join a team of somebody I knew there. But and they're all doing their own thing. They're all doing it, however it works. For some people, it's a big team. For some people, it's a solo agent. So I'm not here to tell you there's one way, but for me, this is the way that works. And it's because it feels right for me. It comes natural. I think there's a ton of benefits for it. I'd recommend it to anybody if you're relationship driven. And it kind of boils down to the whole, and I don't know who first said it. Maybe Floyd Wickman, who knows? But people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I think when you sit down with any client, their first three things they're thinking about is, can I trust you? Are you good at what you do? And do you care about me? And if it's a yes on those three, then you're probably a very good fit. And what I have found is it's natural for me. I love people. I love deep relationships. I don't need to have 1,000 friends, but I love having 10 really good friends. It makes it more fun because you get to talk about personal things before you get into the CMA. It costs me a lot less money to run my business than a lot of people, because I don't have to buy leads. I don't have to spend a ton of money on advertising. I know what I'm going to do. And I decided, all those years ago, until I was doing it perfectly, working by relationship, I wasn't going to take on other things. So and I'm easily distracted by bright, shiny objects. But when the new magazine or the talking house sign or the buy these leads or do this, do that, I don't even have to think about it. I have blinders on. I'm just like, nope, I haven't written my notes this month. I haven't finished all my calls. I haven't done enough little pop-bys to my clients. And I just stay the course. And I've never perfected what I'm doing now. So I haven't been distracted by other things. Now, that's not to say you probably don't want to do some other things. I have always had a farm, and that helped. And my farm happened to always be where I lived, which some people say, don't do that. That's dangerous, because when you see a sign on the neighbor's house across the street and it isn't yours, you're going to back your car through it as you pull out of the driveway. But so there is a little bit of ego, and you have to be vulnerable because you're not going to get them all. But for me, it just makes sense because, again, being relational, I'll see them when I'm out on a walk. I'll see them at the mailbox. I'll see them. So it's just another opportunity to have a face-to-face connection with somebody. So that worked for me. And, there's Compass has a bunch of tools we can use. You got to do a little bit of everything, but figure out what your main strength is. And for me, that's what it is. Working by relationships also very recession proof. I mean, I'm not worried about what's coming up this next couple years. It might be a little slower. That's okay. I'll spend that time building my relationships deeper. So 3 years from now, I'll be even stronger. So I don't have to worry about what's around the corner because I know my people consider me a trusted advisor, and they're gonna still come to me. And I don't know. So it just really, really works for me. I'm not about the deal. I'm about the relationship. And that means I don't have to be, when I'm sitting with my clients, it's more emotional than just transactional. So they know I care. It's more, I couldn't even tell you on a deal right before it closes how much I'm going to make. I'm not about cashing a paycheck. I'm about building a raving fan. And so I know that's going to carry my business forward. I don't consider myself a salesperson. I consider myself a trusted advisor. And Sean, I don't know if you sat through Lance Pendleton's session at retreat, but he's all about authenticity. And I loved it when he said, look, we deal with clients on the third most stressful thing you do in your life after death and job change. I always heard the third one was divorce, but he said now divorce is fourth and selling a home is third. Because usually when you're getting divorced, you have to sell the home. So anyway, the third most stressful thing they do in their life, and they're trusting us with usually their biggest financial asset. That's a huge honor and a huge commitment and a huge responsibility. But that's, so that's, again, I feel like I'm not salesy. When people say to me, I don't think a realtor because I don't want to be a pushy salesperson. I don't feel that way. I feel like it's not being cocky, but I'm just confident in what I know about my market. I'm confident in how much I care about my clients. I'm confident in Compass and the tools we have and the support we have behind me. I honestly leave a listing appointment typically feeling like, God, I hope they go with me, because if they go with the ding dong down the street or the discount broker over there or the whatever, I feel bad for them. I don't think they're going to be as well represented. So it allows me to feel like that trusted advisor. And like I said before, it doesn't mean that client is just one unique transaction for me. It's building on it's going to build. It's got a compounding effect moving forward. So those are the reasons I love that. And, they talk about the C's in working relational, that you have to show your character and your competence. So you have to have both. You have to build your skill set, and you have to be someone they know they can trust. In the Buffini way, we talk about that in the 3 C's, which is the contact, care, and community. So that's pretty much what I stick to how I run my business. And the contact is, it's the Compass email. It's another email that I do once a month. It's the getting out any kind of newsletter or any kind of drip campaign that you're doing. It's making a call. If you're an A client of mine, I call you at least once a quarter. If you're in a deal with me, and you're a seller, I call you every day in this market, because until you tell me you don't want to. And that's another thing, is how often do you want to be communicated with? How do you want to be communicated with? Do you want to text? Do you want a phone call? After a showing, do you want me to call you immediately as they leave the driveway and tell you they don't like your decorating? Or do you only want to hear the good news? How do you want? So it's that whatever you do to keep in contact with them, email, text, phone call, whatever. Then the care part is more the personalized. It's the writing the note. It's the, maybe making a little quick video for them, something that's personalized for them. And community is more about the gatherings that you plan, probably your Facebook and your, whatever you put out there that kind of just reaches the whole community. So you have to do all those kinds of things. To the contact, the care, and the community are the 3 things I focus on. And a funny story, I was this is probably, I don't know, 8 years ago. Buffini has a thing where they give you little stickers to put on the back of your monthly mailing that says, oh, by the way, I'm never too busy for your referrals, right? Yeah. So I'm sitting in, and I used to go to the Starbucks all the time on El Camino across from our old office. Used to stop there every so often, and I'd often run into an attorney that I knew from when I was on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and he was always getting two, and I knew what he got, two of his mocha lattes. So and we chit chat for a minute, blah blah blah. So one day I called him and said, "Hey, can I stop by and just, bring you coffee today instead of meeting up there, because it's always crazy there. Can I bring you a coffee and we'll just sit and talk?" So he said, "Yeah, sure." So I show up, and of course I brought 3, one for me, one for him, and one for his wife, because I know he always gets 2. And I figure even if, whatever, brownie points, who doesn't want to get brownie points with the wife, right? So I show up there, and as I'm sitting across the desk from him, I see in his trash can an envelope with an "oh, by the way" sticker on it, and it hasn't been opened. So I said, "Rusty, why is my envelope not opened?" And he reaches in there and he pulls it out and he goes, "Oh, no. Yours is over here. This is one of the other 7 I get from Buffini agents that has." And I said, "But you don't open them all?" And he goes, "I only open yours." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Who else is bringing me Starbucks?" So it reinforced, it's not just the contact. You have to have the care part. It has to have that personal touch. And that was a real aha to me that, now I'm sure there's a lot of mine that get thrown away without being opened, because I don't call everybody I should and do as much as but it just reinforced, the deeper you go, the better it is. And he's been a great source of referrals for me. I've sold his parents' home. He sent me clients that were getting divorced or had to sell, for their estate, whatever. So.
Can I ask a question, real quick? I'm sure Sean has one, because, and I have a bunch here, and I want to let, if we have time, the audience. But how many people in your network would you consider to be like your core, like that guy? You've got a huge network, but do you find that you have identified who those wealth determiners are in your life? In other words, is everyone treated the same, or do you have a different? Within your network of relationships, is there a core that generates more business for you? And is there a different way of engaging with them than you do with your group as a whole?
Sure. If you looked at my database right now, I probably have 1,800 people in it, but I only consider 120 to be my core. And of those, there's probably 35 that I consider A's. And to be an A for me, you have to have done business with me in the last 5 years, or referred me to someone in the last 5 years. So that's kind of how I figure those are my A's. And then I have some B's. Those are the people that I know would work with me. I feel like we've had the conversation and I know they trust me enough they'd work with me, but they haven't yet. And then the C's are everybody else, just, whatever. And I keep it at 120, because if you're not going to if you don't have the time to call them at least once a quarter, or send them a note at least twice a year, or do something other than have that monthly mailer and that monthly email go out. If you don't have the time to connect on a personal basis, then you're just junk mail. And so why bother? So clear all that junk out. If you told me today, Candis, you got $500, it's the last $500 you're going to have to try to get your business going for next year, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy leads. I'm not going to take out a banner ad somewhere. What I'm going to do is pick probably 10 people and take them to dinner or take them to lunch. And I know I can get more return out of that sitting face to face with somebody, whether it's 1-on-1 or 5-on-1, than just blasting everybody, because it's not special enough. There's no stickiness.
That's such great advice.
Lance was Lance was talking about how we've all had these big events, and I have never had a huge event. I have my annual gratitude gathering, which Mr. Salinas has been at several times, but yes. It's usually 100 people, right around that.
Yeah.
But even at that, it's kind of reminded me of at my wedding, where you can't get around to everybody, and you're like, I didn't even get to say hi to them, and you're feeling all guilty and stressed and hoping they're connecting with other people, but you can't 1-on-1. And he was saying, have smaller things. And I thought, two of my best parties were, one was where I think I invited 6 couples to go to the Chow chocolatier place down at UTC. And we had a chocolate and wine pairing. And it didn't cost me much, but there were 12 of us. And so we really got to talk, very intimately. And that was a great night. And this was back when my kids were still around. So I was still good friends with with parents of kids from school. So that was kind of a La Costa Canyon parents thing. Now they've all scattered to the wind, and, my babies are 35 and 38. So I'm in a different part of my career. Another party was one where there was a movie I forget what movie it was, but there was a chick flick that came out. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to invite like 7 or 8 girlfriends, have them meet me over at, we went to the theaters there in San Marcos, have them meet me over at one of the restaurants right there for hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, and then we'll go to the movies. So I just tell them all, they all RSVP. I say, meet me here. And we met there. We had drinks. I bought some appetizers. I'd already bought the tickets for the movie. And when it was time to get up from having our lemon drops and go over to the movie, I'd already paid the bill, and someone said, no, we're just all friends getting together. We need to split this. And I said, oh, no, I'm going to consider this a client party. This is a business expense. They go, it's not a client party. And I said, well, wait a minute. You bought from me. You referred to me. Your daughter's working with me. And a couple others said, I haven't. And I go, well, you just haven't yet. But and we had and it was, I felt really intimately connected to all of them, whether we'd done business or not. So I think those smaller, and I think it cost me $200. I mean,
right.
And yet
mailing that you would mail out and not even know what the result of that was, right?
Right.
Just right in front of you, you see with gratitude. And in a way, you're soft closing on them, aren't you? When you say, well, you bought for me. Like, in a way, it's psychologically, it's establishing a sense of not just a gratitude, but like an almost, what's the word? Reciprocity.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So anyway,
it's kind of like guilt too.
Yeah. Well, you said
it. And the great thing about those small gatherings is it also, whether they would do it one-on-one or not, but in a group, there's peer pressure. It turns into a love fest. Oh, she's great. Oh, she was so good. She's so patient with my daughter. And it's like, I can't buy that. I guess I can with a lemon drop, but
So the moral of the story is go small,
right?
But act big, right? Like do big things with the smaller group in groups,
right?
As opposed to just treating. I think that's like the most powerful message, and I think you do that. Like that's a big aha for me. Just listening to you, having seen you do that, it's a big aha for me. Sean, what do you have? And because I got a couple more that I'd like to get to Candis, but I got to share the floor here.
Well, the one question I had 2, but you answered one. It's the how. You talked about how you relate to your sphere, your group. The farm, what does that look like? How do you go about the act of farming?
Well, so in my farm, it's 220 people. And to be honest, it was a lot better when I lived in it. I've since moved out of it. And so I've lost some of my traction. And Steve knows some of my personal challenges with another agent who I may or may not have a voodoo doll of, who lives in that same farm. But, it would be things like making sure I get out and walk. It would be things when I had an open house there, making sure I let drop something on everybody's doorstep the day before. Hey, stop by early for a La Costa Ridge only open house. Things like that. Just being very purposeful. And then also being very purposeful about, that's another whole session, but how you choose what open houses to do and where to farm and, to go above and below and adjacent to and blah, 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 all that. But just being very, very purposeful about that. And also making sure, as much as we get bored with what our marketing looks, I would do a mailer a postcard once a month to that farm, whether I had a listing or not. And it was always about something in that farm. It could have been, if I had only one listing for 4 months, September, it would be the picture of the kitchen. November, it'd be a kitchen of the pool. December, because if we think they remember, we're crazy. They don't. They just know, oh, it's Candis's listing in. So I tried to be real purposeful about that and making sure it's always the same size, the same format, the same thing. We get bored. We want to change it up. the client wants to see consistency. It's like, oh yeah, another postcard from Candis. They might right away toss it into the trash, but they know, oh, she's got another listing. I didn't. I had the same listing I had 4 months ago, but it looks the same. It feels the same. It's that consistency. So that's my other thing. I think, as boring as it is, pick a format you love and stick with it.
Boy.
So that's, and we've got the great opportunity now with public collections to set up a collection for everybody in that. I also would walk that stupid neighborhood, every December, dropping off the calendars that you buy that have the motivational things in them.
Mm-hmm.
All the motivational, because who doesn't want more motivation, right? And I probably 80, my kids are like, Mom, nobody uses a calendar anymore. I'm like, but I get at least one a year where somebody, and I use my day timer. Every morning I open my day timer. I'm old school. I read my mission statement. I read my what are my core values. I look at my goals. I do it every morning because I'm old school. So I don't care the calendars were $3 a piece. I walk them so I get to meet some people. If they keep it, fine. If they throw it away, fine. I don't care, but I get at least one every year from that. So, little things like that. So that's my farm. And if I was to go back and do it again, you have limited resources in terms of money, because it's real easy to go broke quickly in this business. I probably would have chosen a move-up farm to that farm, knowing what I know now. So that's my only thing on farming. But again, you can't, these people that have databases of, 10,000 that they mail to, I'm like, why? It doesn't work for me. Maybe it does for them. It works for my sister. She's got her name on milk cartons, but I'm in the value pack mailer, but it doesn't work for me.
Well,
and
go ahead.
I could say the other thing, my sister and I go back and forth. I refrain from calling her a price whore, but to her face. But she has to discount all the time, because when she goes in, she's someone they saw from the Valpak mailer that they mailed to 20,000 people. When I go in, it's, oh, Sue referred me to you. I most of the time don't have to compete with other agents, because the people who will ask their friends for a referral are the people who are nervous about the process. So they want to have somebody's endorsement. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, no, we're good. That's good. Let's sign it tonight. Let's go. And
what you're getting, Candis, is when people say, I've got a friend,
right,
and you'd be nuts not to use her.
Right.
That comment by itself eliminates a lot of the commission discussion, right? Because they're advocating for you as a professional, as that trusted advisor. And those people, how many times have any of us on this call approached a trusted advisor and asked them for a discount? Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. It's not how life works. Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome.
I love, if I can point out, Steve, I'm always looking for patterns and programs. Patterns and programs and patterns. Candis, I lost track of how many times you said these two words. These would be the patterns: trust and communication. Building trust, having trust, showing trust, communicating trust. That pattern repeats in everything you do. And the programming was consistency in look, consistency in action, knowing I'm consistently the expert in my market, and I consistently use the tools I have to go back to the pattern, to communicate trust.
Sure.
And to stay in I love meeting someone who's really good at what they do, because they can almost always explain it simply.
Right.
There's not a lot of moving parts.
Well, the clues are so obvious, aren't they, Sean? I mean, that's
right.
They're just.
Well, and there's subtle little things. When I run into a client out and about and I'm introducing them to someone else, I never say, this is my client, John. I say, this is my friend, John.
Right.
And I this is a silly little thing, but my message, Buffini teaches, you should have on your message, I'm da-da-da-da-da. If you call after 6 p.m. or on a Sunday, I'll call you back on the next business day. I'm like, no, if you call me at 10:30 at night and you're my client, I'm going to get out of bed and call you back, because if you're not sleeping and you're calling me, I'm not going to sleep if you're not sleeping. Wow. And when I call them back, they're like, I didn't expect you to call me. And I'm like, hey, if you're worried about something, I'm worried about something. What do you want to talk about? And it's that old, that old John Mayer line from his song, bad news never has good timing. And I've had those calls at 10:30 at night of, I think we need to cancel our contract. You know, the offer they have in. I don't want them up all night sleeping on that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because they're not a client. They're a friend. And I'm their advisor. I'm not their salesperson. So there's that. And I also don't even like I'll call you back at my earliest convenience. No, damn it. I'll call you back as quickly as I can, or as soon as possible. Because when I hear that, I'm like, oh, well, I guess she'll get to me when she wants to get to me. No, I'll do it as soon as I can.
Well,
And
what you're demonstrating and what you're saying is what it means to be an advocate. I mean, that truly is advocacy, what you're describing at the highest form.
It's those silly little things. I can't tell you how many. I was at a listing appointment not that long ago, which Buffini says we should call a listening appointment, not a listing appointment.
Love that.
And I walked up and the client said, "Oh, I've been sitting at the window watching for you. I didn't realize you were here. Where's your car?" And I said, "Oh, I parked about 5 houses down." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Well, you said you're nervous about the neighbors knowing that you might be moving. So I'm not going to park in front of your house and get out with my little." So I try to be stealth and respect that was a concern for her. I'm not going to pull up realtor. I would do that if I wanted the listing across the street, but I'm not looking for the listing across the street. I'm looking to respect what she wanted. She was nervous her neighbors might know. So just little things, little things.
Sean, remember Vince Lombardi said, "Inches make champions."
Right.
That's what he means right here.
That's where the trust comes from. Is not the great big, see, you can trust me because I did this. It's the little things that they notice that you don't even broadcast.
Always a little.
That's where it comes from.
And they don't cost money. They just take a little bit of thought. You know?
So, Candis, and let's just run over a little bit, Sean, if that's okay, because I just want to I want this on tape if we can. Because you establish trust with people so easily, it seems to me, by being authentic. You know, it's like you a moment ago when you outlined how important that is to you. It's almost like you gave away the secrets of the triangle of trust. Like, how do you do it? Which is empathy, honesty, even if it hurts, and then authenticity. So if you're authentic, you're empathetic, and you're honest where you have to be, that's what creates trust. How do you, knowing that birds of a feather flock together, how do you look for those things in others? Like when you're trying to establish a relationship with someone, that maybe it's a coach, maybe it's where you're looking to, as a customer, to be a client of someone else's. Tell me what you're looking for, because that might give us an idea of how we need to show up to connect with someone as high-minded as yourself. If you understand where I'm going with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, like right now we have several opportunities to use our 10 by 10 money for coaching. And when we go to these seminars, like we were just at in Atlanta, Sean, there's a lot of different styles. And again, I know if it feels good to me. I mean, I walked out of one session because I sat down and he started talking and I was listening. And anymore, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So I got up, walked out. I went in the lobby, and that's when I got my picture of Robert and Leonard together because they were walking the hall. So, getting both of them side by that was a win. I have walked away this year from, I can think of 4 listings this year that I didn't take. One, because there was a cracked slab and the client said they wouldn't disclose it. And I said, well, then you won't be using me. And they said, well, who do you work for? And I said, sorry, I don't care that it's a $4 million listing. And that would be a whale for me. My average sales price is around 1.6. That's my average. But anyway, I said, I'm not losing my license and going to jail. And no, we're not doing it. So they called the next day and said, no, we take it back. And I said, no, I'm not your gal. And I referred him to another agent and told her what the issue was. I have another one that an agent's doing for me right now down in Scripps Ranch, because the client was really concerned about, she told me she'd interviewed a guy in her neighborhood, but that her friend had referred me to her. So I already know I'm going up against someone who's a Scripps Ranch expert, which I am not. But rather than risk losing that and not being able to serve her well with knowing I don't know where the local elementary school is. I don't know where the parks are. I just said, hey, if you trusted me, or if you trusted your friend enough to call me, would you do me the honor of letting my colleague who lives in your area talk to you? So you get a second opinion. Just absolutely. So they interviewed someone else with Compass, and Now Emma has that listing. So, and so, okay, I get 25%. That's better than, 25% of something's better than 100% of nothing. So you just kind of know, I know right now if they're out of my league in terms of, if they're too, I mean, as long as they're nice people, I don't have time for jackasses anymore. I don't care how much it is. If you feel like they'll talk honestly to you and they'll, and that they're ethical, because our business is, there's a million ways to go sideways in terms of risk management in this business.
You read about that.
I am not going there. So, and if they're fun, I mean, if I get the feeling, these people like me and they trust me and they're going to be good to work with, and they do have the motivation to sell or buy, then yeah, I'll take them on.
Awesome.
So it's just, I think you just know it. You just,
and just having the courage or the strength, the fortitude to walk away from it allows you to live a life of abundance, right? Because now you're going to go seek what it is you want in your world,
right?
Not be forced into a relationship where you're out of alignment,
right?
That doesn't produce the best outcome ever, does it?
No, it sure doesn't.
And she's saying something that we all know intuitively. You can feel it. You can feel when someone's not being themselves, and it doesn't necessarily make it bad, but you can tell.
Right?
People can tell.